Hey, how about this? We get a little bonus Miami talk on a Monday afternoon here. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We ask that you like the video. So before you dive into the conversation, listen to what Paul has to say as we kick it around over the next hour or so. Please like the video, share the video on social media so you might be able to get it out there right now. Just grab that link, send it out there, and of course, subscribe. Get on over to Paul's channel as well. Paul's Scoop on the U. And to subscribe right there. Paul, how are we doing today?
Mark, I'm doing excellent. Thank you again for having me on your show. It's always a pleasure to come on your show, and I'm extremely grateful once again for the opportunity.
Thank you for providing the insight. No doubt about that. People love it. People love the conversation. People love the different angles that different analysts provide. And so your slice has definitely been well taken here by myself and all sorts of great comments. So appreciate that. We had a scrimmage on Saturday, and it's sometimes tough to read if you don't get all the information. We get some pictures, get a little bit of video, get some snippets on social media with some partial plays and that sort of thing. But based on what you could gather out of this scrimmage, what happened out there that was meaningful?
First thing I look at, quarterback play. You have basically a quarterback room filled of underclassmen. Tyler Van Dyke goes 10 out of 15, 114 passing yards, 1 TD. Jake Garcia, the true freshman, literally one semester into the University of Miami, he goes 15 out of 19, 188 passing yards, 1 TD. They made a bunch of great throws throughout the entire scrimmage, according to Coach Manny Diaz. I think it's safe to say the quarterback room has changed at the University of Miami, Mark. When Coach Manny Diaz stepped on that stage in his first press conference at Miami, he stated his goal was to change the quarterback room. At the University of Miami, Mark, there's been tons of years where we had our starting quarterback, and then after our starting quarterback, we had a bunch of 3-star under-the-radar projects, ultimately. Now we have our star player in De'Aaron King, college football playmaker. We have 4-star recruit Jake Garcia, Tyler Van Dyke, 4-star recruit as well. Peyton Matoka is the only under-the-radar 3-star recruit we brought in the quarterback room. But ultimately, Mark, the quarterback position is changing, and you're building elite depth. And that's something I'm very grateful that Manny Diaz is doing. I've been very critical of Coach Manny Diaz, so have a lot of people. But I have to give credit when it's due, Mark, and he is changing positions at Miami. He is creating that elite depth that we're seeing at the running back room, at the safeties position, at the quarterback position as well. And so that was really something that caught my attention. Another thing that caught my attention was Xavier Restrepo. 9 receptions, I believe over 144 receiving yards, 2 TDs, Mark. This entire offseason, I'm going to be stating this. We need someone to step up in the wide receiver rotation after Mike Harley. Rhett Lashley said it perfectly. You need 1 to 3 guys contributing to your offense at the wide receiver position, contributing, making plays in the wide receiver rotation. If Xavier Restrepo can step up from the underclassmen group, that's a great start. We know Mike Harley, what he's going to bring to the table. He's a veteran ACC player who's always was supposed to play in this spread offense. Remember, he was recruited by Dana Holgorsen at West Virginia. He was supposed to play at West Virginia and flipped his commitment to Miami last second. We know what we're going to get at Charleston Rambo. He's excelled at Oklahoma. He's a Big 12 veteran player, comes from an elite offense. So having 3 guys in the rotation that can contribute and make plays, we averaged 34 points per game, and we had a subpar wide receiver rotation, Mark. Imagine if you have a better one than the past season. Ultimately, I think 41 points per game is in sight.
Yeah, we talked about that in the past, and you had some pretty good ways to figure, hey, if we just get decent wide receiver play, we've been at this scoring output, we should be able to jump at a touchdown per game. It's definitely reasonable when you think back at all the downfield plays that were blown by dropped passes. Certainly, no question about that. We got Mr. HD in the live chat. Appreciate seeing you, as well as Desmond. Good to see you, as well as Fred Langston. Ronan is pointing out right here, Surprise Live, great work on the new podcast, Paul. Everyone go check it out. Paul, where can we catch that?
Yeah, it's called The Believe in the U. It's associated with the Believe Network. So you can check that out on Spotify or iTunes. Just type in The Believe in the U. I upload kind of mini previews of my new podcast weekly basis. I'll probably drop one tonight. like just a 5-minute rough estimate of what my podcast is going to talk about, and then I'll provide the links below. So yeah, check me out on Spotify or iTunes, and Snitch as well. Snitcher, my apologies.
Very cool. Very cool. I'll check that out, and everybody jump on that and support over there. Audio and the video with Paul Scoop on the U, definitely right there. I released some ACC football coaches rankings this morning, so check that out, folks. I was going to drop the link. I forgot to. I was kind of rushing here to get on and forgot to drop the link in the live chat. So go check that out. It's on the main channel. Just posted that this morning. ACC football coaches rankings for 2021. I'm going to do a different Power 5 conference every day this week, and we started with the ACC. Miami Flow, appreciate the super chat contribution right there. Great show. Keep up the great work. Go Canes. Miami Flow, we always appreciate you. And Miami Flow's got a channel out there as well. I just found that out last week. So, man, we got all sorts of Miami content flowing. So I think that's a great thing. Certainly, we can all support and share and get the word out there as long as it's quality, as long as it's accurate, and people are doing a nice job of covering the team, whether that's good or bad. It can't be all with a smile on your face and everything's great. It got to be reasonable about what's going on out there. So definitely we've noticed that from Paul. He comes on here. He tells it like it is. Always good to hear that, whether that's good or bad. So we get this scrimmage in the books. Anything else that's come out of these practices? We're about halfway through that's caught your eye?
Yeah, it seems like we're developing a first-team offensive line, or the coaching staff has a clear picture of what they want to do. Now, it has been reported by multiple social media outlets, University of Miami is in the transfer portal in the hunt to look out for potential another offensive line target. I think ultimately that was set in stone, stating they don't really have a second team in place yet. They want to provide depth. Last year, let's be real, we had an average offensive line in conference play in the ACC. So take that for what it is. But if you put that offensive line in the top 10 to top 15, I don't know how it will stack up with those defensive lines. Maybe in the Big 12, it could be a little bit better. But, our offensive line wasn't the greatest this past season. But it seems like at left guard, you're seeing a competition between Ja'Kai Clark and Jalen Rivers. I'm very confident about those two players. And I think whoever wins that battle is going to be a contributor on the field no matter what. He's going to make a big impact. By the way, Jared Harrison Hunt said Jalen Rivers was a huge target, big body. I think that's great to hear. If you follow Miami Hurricanes football, Jared Harrison Hunt, defensive tackle, he's someone to look out for this next upcoming season. So when he's praising an underclassman such as Jalen Rivers, I think that's a positive sign in development. Navon Donaldson, he's at right guard. Everyone is saying he's in the best shape of his life, and that's the appropriate position he needs to be at. His freshman year, he was an All-American, I believed, and he was at right guard. Ever since you switch positions with our offensive linemen, it's a very difficult task, and I feel like it delays development. I had Jason Fox on my show this past week, 6-year NFL player. He was second all-time in career starts at the University of Miami, offensive lineman. He told me he changed positions throughout his time at Miami. He said, look, I was the exception. It wasn't a hard switch for myself. But ultimately, you're teaching someone to work with different body parts. If you let's say, for example, you throw a football with your right hand. Hey, can you throw a football with your left hand? You have to strengthen that other side of your body. So it's very psychological. It's very difficult to switch positions on the offensive line. You're going to be using different parts of your body which are not as strong. So, I think it's great Navon Donaldson is going back to right guard. You have your starting center in Corey Gaynor. Zion Nelson, this is the dream come true. You got the under-the-radar 2-star recruit from App State to flip. You believed in his skill set, even if it was a different offensive line coach, but the project is coming to life. So seems like he's going to be your starter at left tackle. And then at right tackle, you have an interesting battle between Scaife and Jared Williams. Ultimately, I think Williams will win that battle at right tackle. I spoke with Christopher Stock from Inside the U, and he stated it like it was. He says that he'd be in shock if Scaife won the battle over the veteran college football player in Jared Williams at right tackle, who I believe is in his final year of eligibility at the University of Miami. So that's a pretty solid first-team offensive line, Mark, in ACC. I think that's above average and could be good. That's something to work off of. And when I spoke with Jason Fox the past week, he stated, look, he doesn't like rotating offensive line units. You want to play those guys throughout the game unless they're gassed out. He said you shouldn't be rotating drives with different offensive linemen. So if we can keep this group and build off of it and build a second team, you might have something going this season at Miami.
Yeah, there's no group on the field, offense or defense, that needs more cohesion and be able to work together like an offensive line. The linebackers do to a certain extent, the safeties and corners do to a certain extent in coverages, but nothing close to the offensive line. Those guys need to be in sync. And yeah, when you've got the same guys playing in the same spots, sure, you've got a rotation. You want to have like maybe two guys that get some reps and supplement and complement the five that start. But basically, you want the five out there and you want them in those same spots every week. And man, the complexity of building an offensive line and doing it the right way, especially when you may have, these are the five best athletes, these are the five best players, but wow, he's really not a good right guard. He's a better this or that. And do we bring this guy in because he fits that spot better, but we're really taking a downgrade athletically? All those things have to be figured out, and what's your best group and what spots. So very intriguing to see if the offensive line can be better this year, because you don't want to be in a situation where you've been in the last few years, and I think Rhett Lashley did it to a certain extent this year, where you're calling plays to protect an offensive line. You want to be able to call the plays that you want to call.
100%. Absolutely. And we averaged 34 points per game, Mark, with the personnel we had this past season, with that entire offensive line unit. Everyone's returning. With that wide receiver rotation that we just spoke about, that was basically subpar. You really only had one go-to receiver in Mike Harley. Everyone else was a big question mark. So imagine this, man. You bring in, all these players are returning, and you develop them an entire season. You have your spring football practice that you didn't have this past year. Okay, the only difference is D'Eriq King's coming in the fall, but I'm just saying, I really think maybe 40 points per game is the benchmark. It's just 6 more points, 1 more touchdown. Here's something I found interesting, Mark. You know, Miami running the football against Clemson, they had only 5 yards running the ball on the ground between the running backs, not including D'Eriq King. Against UNC, they had 22 yards on the ground from their running backs. D'Eriq King was the leading rusher in both of those games. Let's say the offensive line is a better unit overall. They start opening holes for our running backs. Not only is D'Eriq King putting up numbers on his legs, but also your running game is enhancing as well. It's getting better. Instead of averaging 3 yards per carry a game, you started averaging over 5 yards per carry. Hey, I'm just saying, I think something special can happen offensively this upcoming season.
Got some familiar names and faces in the live chat. Appreciate that. Ronan, you are a tremendous support to this channel. Appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for all that you do. No question about that. Again, Miami Flow, thank you for the super chat contribution. And then keep this in mind that you guys ultimately produce the shows. So if you bring in your comments, your questions, I get them right to Paul, or if I've got anything to say about it, you guys produce the show. So we will respond to your comments and your questions. Paul, I mentioned a few minutes ago that I posted a video this morning on the main channel with my ACC Coaches Ranking. So your thoughts about, it's certainly not a great position to be in as a fan when you think, okay, we've got a more talented team than Team B, Virginia Tech, whoever it was on that given Saturday, but we got outcoached. We lost the game, or some dude just had to make a play for us in the last 2 minutes to bail us out. But man, we did that, and that was stupid, and we got out coached. I know the jury's still out for part of the coaching staff, because you got to see them coach for Miami. They've done some work elsewhere, but you got to see them coach for the Canes. But how comfortable do you feel with the staff and with Manny Diaz right now against the competition in the ACC on the sideline?
Great question, Mark. That's funny. I was actually thinking about that, this upcoming season, breaking down conference coaching staffs. And ultimately, we don't play Clemson unless we make it to the ACC title game. But obviously, that's the elite staff right there. That's the best of the best. Look, I tip my hat off to North Carolina. They beat us by what? It was 62-26 this past season. They put up 60 points on us. Tip my hat off to Mac Brown. He's a national title head coach. He's been to the promised land. All right. You got to respect that. I think Miami's in the top 3, Mark, to be honest, staff-wise. And I think we're right there with UNC staff-wise. Ultimately, the results have to show on the field. So if we beat UNC this upcoming season, which is possible, that's why you played the game, we're going into Chapel Hill. And Sam Howell's a very good quarterback. They're going to have a very good offense once again. They're going to reload with Phil Longo as their OC. They're going to make it happen. Believe me. I think Miami's, in that tier 1 in ACC conference play. Now, I just mentioned Clemson and North Carolina. Those are both top 25 programs. Clemson's probably going to be in the top 5, top 10. UNC, I think that's going to be top 10, top 15 team open up preseason. How they finish, I don't know. But I think Miami, staff-wise, is in that 15 to 25 mark. I think this is a top 25 team. We just added Ishmael, I believe it's Aristide, to our staff. He is an ace recruiter coming from Texas A&M. He knows every single recruit that they got in that class of 2020-21. That is a very good recruiter. Jimbo Fisher only hires ace recruiters. Travis Williams would have been an A-plus, higher part of the staff. Obviously, he gets the defensive coordinator at UCF. So in my opinion, that was a big loss. But hey, I think we did well with Aristide. This is a top 25 staff. It can be better in my opinion. I don't want to single out any coaches' names, but I think there's one person we can improve on. But I think this is a pretty solid staff overall. It's not 10 out of 10, but I think it's B to B plus average.
More good names there in the live chat, including the Wholesome One, who's here to support Paul and myself. Appreciate that, Wholesome One. You can catch the Wholesome One and myself every Thursday. We'll be on Thursday at, 4:30 Eastern time over on the main channel, talking Miami football. And again, Paul's got a podcast, audio podcast, and of course his YouTube channel. And one more time on the audio podcast that just started.
Yeah, it's the Believe in the U. You can find it on Spotify or iTunes. If you type in the Believe in the U, it's a part of the Believe Podcast Network.
So we are cranking out college football coverage here every day. And again, Miami fans, we got Cam Underwood from State of the U. You got to keep the notifications going for that because we don't know when we can flag him down and get that scheduled. So that's not set every week. We talked to Paul on a pretty regular basis. So keep it locked in here. We had Brad Tejeda on last week as well. Good stuff. Good stuff. Of course, those two defensive ends are doing some work right now, trying to impress some NFL scouts. There was pro day today, and it should be a pretty serious payday for one Jalen Phillips. Quincy Roche is a guy that's more of a technician, but still should be more than a serviceable player at the next level. Let's start there and just your thoughts about how these guys project.
I'm pretty confident I read, because I was working throughout the day, so it was hard for me to really watch the pro day, but I'm pretty confident I read Jalen Phillips ran a 4.46 40. He's defensive end. God knows how much he weighs, probably around over 250. Okay. That's not normal. I'm pretty sure if I'm an NFL GM, whoever is evaluating these draft picks, I might take Jalen Phillips over Gregory Rousseau. Okay. Very impressive pro day from Jalen Phillips. You got Gregory Rousseau. I think this will be the first time since 06 with NC State had, what's his name? Mario Williams was his name. And the other defensive end to have 2 first rounders in the NFL draft than any other program since 2006. Now, don't take that with a grain of salt, that stat. But I think that's what I read. And that would be very impressive. It's kind of like someone stated on Twitter. I believe it was Mike McCoy. He stated one of the biggest what ifs at Miami was, what if Gregory Rousseau and Jalen Phillips played together this past season? We're not even mentioning Quincy Roche as well, who could be a top 3 round draft pick. So Miami's kind of creating that identity under Manny Diaz's defense that we just reload at the defensive end position and we have elite defensive linemen.
Yeah, I remember us kicking that around a number of times before the COVID conditions set in and the season was compromised and Greg Rousseau decided to opt out. What could this staff possibly do with those 3? Definitely they've got a rotation of 2 spots and 3 players, but they could also probably really mix and match and sometimes have packages where they could get all 3 on the field at the same time and really cause some serious havoc, but we didn't get a chance to see that.
Yeah, it is what it is. I wish Gregory Rousseau the best of luck. I hope his decision was the smartest decision for him, and he gets drafted in, the appropriate, I guess, slot he wanted to get picked in. We would have loved to seen him in a University of Miami uniform this past season, but hey, we hope his decision works out best for him, and he makes a lot of money and has a great NFL career, and I believe he will. And I believe whoever drafts him is going to be very lucky. As we saw, Bill Belichick was down in Miami for the pro day. He loves drafting University of Miami football players, taking them into his NFL football team. So, the best of the best come out of the University of Miami for some reason. Got to love it.
Folks, we know you shop Amazon, most of you, at some point. So when you do, please grab the link in the description section of the videos. And it's the same shopping experience. Doesn't cost you a dime, helps us build the channel. Sasha, thank you so much for the Super Chat contribution. Sasha, we appreciate that so much. Got Paul Scoop on the U right here talking Miami football. You know what the common thought is anytime you either see stats from scrimmages or a spring game or you watch the actual play on the field is it's football. So, and it's just sports. So the competition means that every time there's a successful play, there's somebody who was unsuccessful. And when you're playing against yourself, that means somebody was unsuccessful on that play, and you're like, okay, well, our quarterbacks just went and you ran down the numbers, 15 for 19 and so forth and so on. So, and it's difficult because I'm sure you saw a lot more than I did, but I caught maybe 5 clips of plays on social media. So it's difficult to tell really what happened from that. But I did see one ISO of a defensive back getting burned by about 5 yards downfield on a long pass play. So we're with all the pluses on the QB and passing game side, some possible concerns in the secondary.
One silver lining that I was really excited that Manny Diaz stated, and I don't think this player gets enough attention because everyone's so focused on, the quarterback room, the wide receiver rotation, offensive line, but Tyreek Stevenson, he was praised by Coach Manny Diaz for his pass coverage, stopping the run. Overall, just great tackling. The amount of experience he is bringing from the SEC East to the ACC Coastal, I mean, that's your best corner right there coming into this room, and that's going to be your leader. And I think Tyreek Stevenson is going to have a monster year, and it really was a great addition to the program. Look, I'll be honest. I don't think anybody knows how well DJ Ivey and Al Blaze are going to play this upcoming season. Will Corey Couch develop and grow? That I guess in a sense, this will be his 3rd year of college football. This whole COVID rules kind of play with my head. But, Travaris Robinson, we're going to see where his mouth is. Everyone is praising him as an elite recruiter and developer coming from South Carolina. I know we paid a lot of good money, and Manny Diaz is going all in with Travaris Robinson, overseeing the defensive backs unit. And then bringing in DeMarcus Van Dyke as well at the cornerback position, overseeing that group. There were a couple people mentioning, look at his resume. It doesn't really pan out to be the cornerbacks coach at Miami. This is a elite Power 5 program. I would hope that's what we're selling it as. So, I'm very curious. That jump is going to be at the cornerback room. But I'll tell you what, I'm very confident in the play of Tyreek Stevenson to Corey Couch. I think we're in a great situation depth-wise with guys like Blades and Ivy, Dunson and Clark. The key here at Miami, Mark, is always development. We always have the talent. We always have the skill set. Can you develop these guys? And there's times where I wonder, like players such as Mark Pope, DJ Ivy, how would they develop at other programs that they were offered by, big-time Power 5 programs? Because their skill set is there. I think it's more of a mental game with these players. And it's development from their coaches as well. A guy like Mark Pope, I know we were talking about cornerbacks, but this is a great example. Mark Pope, he was recruited by Ron Dugans. His wide receivers coach was Coach Stubblefield, and then it's Coach Likens. That's 3 different wide receiver coaches. Is that really ideal that you want at any football program? I know Alabama gets away with it for some reason, but it's not really ideal for a lot of football programs to have a change in coaches and different techniques and fundamentals they're teaching you.
We had a conversation last week with a wholesome one. I also think we had the same conversation with Cam Underwood about Mark Pope. How tall is Mark Pope?
I believe he doesn't look 6 foot, 6'1", to be honest, from pictures. I mean, I've never seen him in real life, but let's say 6 feet.
Okay. So he's still 2 to 3 inches taller than Elijah Moore, who went to Ole Miss and just lit it up. And there was some conversation there, and I learned a lot from Cam, and a wholesome one concerning the recruiting process, and that Elijah Moore wasn't nearly the prospect that Mark Pope was. Elijah Moore ends up at Ole Miss and had a ridiculous career. Caught like 80-some passes last year with like 16 touchdowns, and was Ole Miss's by far their leading receiver the last 2 years, and has set himself up for like a slot receiver spot in the NFL for years to come.
And Mark, this kind of goes back to, what my previous statement was. What if Mark Pope was in a program and he only played in the inside, only at slot? At Miami, we put him on the outside tons of times. And I think that's because of personnel and depth reasons. We don't have any personnel to put on the outside. They may not know the playbook. So, we would have to limit the play calling with those players in the game. So you put Mark Pope on the outside because of personnel reasons. At programs such as Georgia, Alabama, like you stated, Ole Miss, with high-powered offenses, Mark Pope probably would just play in the slot, and that's it throughout his whole career. And I think that's problems that Miami has been dealing with. Depth issues and forcing players to play out of position. And hopefully, I think Manny Diaz is fixing that issue. And we're seeing that, at the running back room, at the quarterback position. We're trying to build that at the wide receiver position. We're seeing at the safeties position units. So hopefully we can have players start playing in their position, not out of position.
We were talking about the step to the NFL, and you were mentioning the one coach, the one player that come in from the SEC Eastern Division, and some people blow out of proportion the SEC's lead on everybody else in college football, but it is decided, it is a fact, whether that's coming into college football or the 3 or 4 years later leaving college football. The numbers that I saw the other day for the 2020 NFL rosters, there were, I'm going to round it off. I'm off by like 1 or 2 players, but about 330 NFL players from the SEC, about 210 from the ACC. The Big Ten was number 2 with 280. Also keep in mind that all 3 of those conferences have the same number of teams, so it's an even comparison. Again, the SEC about 330, the Big Ten around 280, then the ACC around 205 to 210, something in that range. So it's not that there aren't tremendous players in the ACC, NFL caliber players. There's just, again, there's more of them in the SEC.
Yeah, Mark, have you ever seen this in like college football? Because I was born in 1994. Like I haven't seen my fair share of college football. It's only been 20 years. I mean, nobody remembers when they're 5 or 6 years old. But, I've only seen 20 years of college football. But I cannot recall ever seeing a power conference like the SEC just kind of dominate college football and all eyes are on that conference. I've always kind of remembered like, hey, you have University of Southern California in the Pac-12. You have Notre Dame as independent. And then the SEC, who did you have? Because Alabama, during my time, really wasn't taking off. Slowly, after Mike Shula was saving, but then you had LSU. Florida was here and there. They had their golden era with Urban Meyer. Florida State had Jimbo Fisher. It was programs in every conference, 2 or 3 that were good, had their highlights. But I never saw one conference just fully take off. And maybe that has to do with the conference changes. Texas A&M joining the SEC when they really should just be in the Big 12 geographically. I don't know. I'm curious. What do you think?
The first season that I was really locked into college football, like I watched every game and was locked in, was 1978. So I'm dating myself here, 1978. And if you, Paul, picked up a preseason college football magazine from 1978 all the way well into the 2000s, a preseason magazine, Athlon, Street and Smiths, any of them, you could look at a top 25 preseason or look at the final rankings. And it's not like it is now where you can say Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State are going to be 3 of the top 4. Georgia's going to be up there. Oklahoma's going to be. Yeah. No, you could take like half of each conference and you didn't know if like the Big Ten's locked down. Then Illinois would win Big Ten championships. Iowa would win Big Ten championships. Michigan State would win Big Ten championships. You could go across the country. Colorado was really good for a long time. Oregon State went 11-1 and finished number 3 in the country in the year 2000. Won a Fiesta Bowl. You could go to every conference, and it was like you didn't know what the top 15 to 20, 25 teams in the country were going to be. Like you had, of course, you had an idea, especially Miami and Florida State emerged in the mid 80s, and they were really, really good for 10 to 15 years. And so they were typically in the top 5 or 10, but it was all over the place.
Yeah.
It's gotten boring.
Exactly.
I think.
Exactly. And, that's really the state of college football is, you see recruits and, they tell these coaches, like, I want to play in the SEC. I don't want to play in the ACC or, like they primarily just want to play in this conference because of the level of talent. And I'm sure there's other variables as well. But, the SEC really has taken off, and it kind of is like Alabama, Clemson, you have your Georgia, Ohio State, Oklahoma. Everyone's battling for that third or fourth spot, and I'm curious how it got this gaudy, how recruiting has gotten so big. And I just think it's going to get bigger and bigger. And hey, we'll see what happens. But I think some programs may never be able to catch up because it's just that big and it's catering to specific programs.
Daryl Page is chiming in with this one. What's up, Paul? Do you think we'll have a 1,000-yard receiver this year?
I'll tell you what, Daryl. The only person I see reaching 1,000 yards is Mike Harley. I don't see any other receiver breaking 1,000 yards. I will be completely surprised. So I think Mike Harley is the only potential receiver to do so. But if he does reach 1,000 yards, Miami will have a 10-win season. I'll tell you that.
All right. Hurricane Kilo 407. Appreciate that super chat contribution so much. And again, I'd like for everyone to head on over to Paul's YouTube channel at some point if you're not familiar. And I know most of you are, but still, if you're not familiar, check out his content right there. And again, the Miami contingent of content creators. And I bring on the guys that I think are first rate, Paul included, of course. And that doesn't mean that if I don't ask somebody on that they're not first rate. I'm not aware of that many. I don't sit around and watch YouTube college football people. People ask me all the time, why don't you bring him on? Why don't you bring him on? Don't you know about him? And I'm typically like, yeah, I have no idea who you're talking about. I really don't pay that much attention to what's going on out there. So, in your case, Paul, there were just a ton of people. They're like, you got to have Paul on here. And I'm like, okay.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Always coming on. It's a pleasure, Mark, and everyone who recommended me to you, man. I'm just grateful for their reference. So,
all right, we got Cortez Smith. Will Don Chaney Jr. be the lead back by the middle of the season?
I really hope so. This is something I preach a lot. I hate sharing carries, with running backs. I felt like this past season, it was very evenly distributed. I felt like Don Chaney would get in a rhythm. Then we take him out a couple drives and put in Cam Harris. If Don Chaney's our starting running back, I want him getting 15 to 20 carries a game, at least. Feed him the football. I feel like that's something Miami used to do back in the day was, hey, if someone's rolling the rock, keep feeding him the football. Why take him out of a drive? Let him finish. Unless he's just gassed and it's like a 90-yard drive that he ran. He started completely and you're at the goal line standing. You need a big body. Get your 3 down back and then your 3rd down running back, short yardage situation. Put in that running back. So ultimately, I see Don Chaney as our go-to running back, and then short yardage situations. Put your Cam Harris, or maybe in special formations, you want to put in Jalen Knight in for specific plays. So ultimately, I would like to see Don Chaney take the majority of carries. And I believe he will. Now, Manny Diaz does have a seniority thing going on where he likes to play veteran players for some reason. I don't get it. I will never understand it. I think we're going to see that same thing this upcoming season where veteran players do get a lot of playing time early on until the young guys just prove themselves.
I hate to give everyone whiplash in regards to topic whiplash, but I'm going to go back to what we were talking about just a couple minutes ago with Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama, and college football. I compiled some stats. I don't have them right in front of me, but they are just jaw-dropping. Nobody's going to be surprised by it, just in regards to the way those three have dominated the college football playoff era. Like those three are 9-1 against everybody else. Like they have only beaten each other. Basically, they're only losing to each other. That's the only reason that they get knocked off is that they're beating each other. All their losses the Clemson loss to LSU in the championship game 2 years ago is the only time any of them have lost to anybody else.
Yeah.
And then there's a zillion other metrics I came up with. The thing that will be interesting, though, is Alabama's a blue blood all-time great.
Oh, yeah.
But from the late 90s, I was down there covering Alabama football from 1994 to 2000. So I was on the sidelines of the press box going to SEC championship games, the whole thing. And they were really good some of those years, and they were down some of those years. They got into the 2000s, and they had a 6 or 7 year dry spell before Saban. So for people that have only been watching for 15 years or so, you don't really understand. Alabama, they were losing to teams like Louisiana Tech and Southern Miss in the early 2000s. So it's just not a given. So it'll be interesting when Saban leaves. Now, most likely they'll get another really good coach and they'll keep humming, maybe not at this rate, but how much the Saban effect is in place. And Clemson's always had a nice program, a top 25-ish kind of program, but how much of this is Dabo? Now the Ohio State deal is a little different, where you got to go back before World War II before they've had a coach who didn't compete for national championships. Yeah. Even the coach before Woody Hayes won it. Even the two coaches before Woody Hayes, Wes Fessler and Paul Brown, won national championships at Ohio State. So it's been like since the 30s since Ohio State's now won a national championship. So that's a little bit different of a deal. But the other two, we'll see if they can maintain after their legendary coach moves on.
Yeah, I mean, University of Southern California is another program who's gone through its ups and downs, Mark. I mean, before Pete Carroll got there, I mean, it took them quite a while to get the ball rolling, So, hey, that's the beauty of college football, when a new head coach comes in, new tenure, we'll see how it goes. Necessarily doesn't cast success. Texas has had a rocky road when Mac Brown retired. Hasn't been the same. So, every program will take its downfall and then they'll always rise. And, we see this all the time. I remember growing up as a kid, Howard's Rock wasn't a big deal. Death Valley really wasn't that big of a deal. There was nothing special about Howard's Rock whatsoever. I remember they would call it the Bowden Bowl. It was Tommy Bowden and Bobby Bowden going at it usually first game of the year. So, ultimately, I think talking about Miami, I don't think it's that hard of a project. I'm just curious if maybe college football is just so advanced where it's just hard for programs to have consecutive success. Because, Mark, look at LSU. You just mentioned them. They had that 1 year where they won the national title, but the following season, they went down. And I don't think they're going to rebound, in my opinion. Auburn had that 1 year where they beat Alabama by sheer miracle. I believe they won a national title or played a national title every once in a while, but you're seeing pockets of success from programs, and then they go downhill in college football, where the Alabamas, Clemson's, Ohio States, and the Oklahomas, they have consecutive success. And even Oklahoma, they can't compete in the college football playoff. They usually get blown out, or, it's a boat race to 45. So, ultimately, I'm curious in the state of college football if Miami can get back. They're not in the most difficult conference to do it. Now, the problem with winning the ACC Coastal, I don't get it. It's the weakest division in college football. It seems like anyone can literally just stand there as head coach and win the Coastal. It's that bad, in my opinion. But, hey, let's see if Manny Diaz can get the job done, and let's see if he can accomplish what so many failed to do.
Yeah, LSU's a curious matter because they've turned out close to as many NFL players as Alabama and Ohio State. But after reaching the national championship game against Alabama and getting blown out in 2011, they're bringing in, number 3, number 5 classes in recruiting every year. And they never lost less than 3 games. For 8 or 9 consecutive years, it's 8-4, 9-3 for them. They're losing 3 and 4 games every year before the one, bam, Joe Burrow, Joe Brady year where they win a national championship. They're back down to losing 5 games last year, and we'll see what they got this year. But I think they're going to come back to a certain degree, but again, be top 15. I don't think they're going to get back in the running for another national championship. All right. The Rod Farva is an Ohio State fan. We see he's got a birthday today. So
happy birthday.
Rod, happy birthday. How many more practices do we have? When's the spring game? How much time we got
I
left here?
believe the spring game. I know it's early April. I want to say either April 6th or 17th. I know those two dates are really weird and very separated, but it's got to be one of those or April 7th. I don't know. It's around that mark. So it's coming up and it's going to be recorded, which I'm ecstatic about, Mark. I can't recall the last time I've seen a recorded spring game by a cable provider. Instead, we've all been watching it through YouTube or going to the venue itself. And I think that's quite, I don't want to say the word pathetic, but it's embarrassing. You are a national elite program that you're supposed to sell yourself on, and yet you don't even want to record your own spring game. And you give out the excuse that it's the benefit of opening up week one against a top tier opponent. Well, you lost both of those games when you use that excuse. So I'm very excited to see a recorded spring game, and that should not be the issue moving forward as a football program.
Well, I would think now that the ACC network's in play that the entire conference would be on television. I think Duke was on last week. I didn't watch it. I saw that after the fact that I think they were on. So I would think that they would highlight everybody in the conference.
I would hope so, Mark. Miami's always late to the party for things. I remember they had a pro day in the early 2010s. I believe it was 2013, 2014, and it was pouring rain while the pro day was happening on Green Tree. And it's a shame because those seniors, those players that elected to go pro, all their hard work was basically diminished because of not having an indoor practice facility. And I believe in the future, which ultimately, is what we have and what started that. But we got to be more modern and ahead of the game. And I think Coach Manny Diaz acknowledges that. And I'm just glad we're finally modern in the sense of facilities because we're always the last of the party.
All right. Mr. Shaboy is taking offense to the Coastal Division's slap in the face, being the weakest in college football.
We've had a different winner every single season to start off. UNC is your strongest team. That's a top 25 program that's arisen. Miami is like hit or miss. Either they're going to go 6-7, 7-6, or 9-3, or 10-3 per se. I mean, that's really what their record has been. After that, you have Virginia, who's under Bronco Mendenhall, who's been an average to above average program. Okay. You have Duke, who is Duke football. I mean, it's a basketball school. They used to have a track around their stadium. I mean, do I have to get into more explanation about Duke football? Georgia Tech is under Jeff Collins. I think they're an awful football team the past couple seasons. If you can't acknowledge that, I don't know how to explain that. They're awful. Virginia Tech has been shaky under Justin Fuentes. It's not a very stable division, is what I'm trying to get to. And you match that division with any other division in college football. Some people say that the Pac-12, I don't know how they say it. There's one division in the Pac-12 that is worse than the ACC Coastal. I'm curious if those two teams did play against each other, but it's got to be in the bottom tier, Mark, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. It's probably the worst. But the Pac-12 South, USC, UCLA, Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, Colorado, I still think, they're probably better because USC still, they're down, but they're still good.
I think
and Utah's good.
I think that's an equal matchup evaluation.
And North Carolina just got good. Let's not talk about North Carolina like they've been good for 10 years. They were just 2-10 2 years ago. It's basically Mac Brown showed up and they got good. So yeah, this division, put it in this perspective, Florida State won the national title in 2013. So it's been since at least 2012 since the division won the ACC championship game. What is that? They've lost 9 or 10 consecutive ACC championship games because Florida State and Clemson have won them all. And most of those have been in embarrassing fashion.
Yeah. Hopefully that changes, right? Everything comes in 10, I guess. So, I mean, I think at some point we'll see someone take over Clemson or, whoever takes over that Atlantic division. But I don't know, man. I think if Mac Brown gets the ball rolling, maybe it's UNC, but it's really up for grabs in the Coastal every year. And, we're seeing an identity with UNC take over. And I'm curious if Miami is leveled with UNC or how close or far are we? Because last season it showed the difference.
Yeah, the Virginia Techs and Pitts of the world. I just rated the coaches in the ACC, so a lot of these numbers are fresh in my head. Virginia Tech's like 2 games under 500 the last 3 years, so they have not been good. They were good before that, of course, but when you've got a bunch of 6-6 and 7-5 teams in the division, there's nothing wrong with that. If those are like your 4th and 5th best teams in the division, then you've got a good division. If those are the bad teams, but those aren't the bad teams, those are the whole division. You don't have Penn State in the division or Wisconsin, and like the Big Ten West. There's not an elite program, like an amazing program, but it's just layered with Wisconsin, Iowa, Northwestern. Those teams are finishing in the top 15 to 20 in the country. They're going 10-2, 9-3. They're not going 5-7, 6-6, and losing out of conference games. So yeah, it's substantiated. All right. So we got a little bit of time left before the spring game. Then we're going to go into a long off season in regards to waiting for the boys to get back on the field that first week of August. So, what are you waiting on? Are there still recruiting targets? Whether you want to talk recruiting or want to talk, I'm going to leave the floor to you and look for more questions here in the live chat.
Yeah, recruiting is always a fun topic. We have Kamari Wilson, April 1st. He's making a decision. Number 1 safety in the nation. Interesting story. He has a great relationship with Travaris Robinson from his time in South Carolina. Obviously moved to present day. He's down at Miami from South Carolina. Does that relationship pay off in his commitment? I don't know. Obviously, he's considering Alabama, Georgia, basically everybody and their mom he's looking at. Okay, he's the number 1 safety in the nation. Does he pick Miami? I'd be surprised if he does. You never know. Take everything with a grain of salt in recruiting. That would be amazing. But I'll tell you what, his relationship with Travaris Robinson, Miami's going to fight to land Kamari Wilson until the last day of signing day, until it's pen to paper, whatever school he decides to choose from. So just look out for with Kamari Wilson on April 1st in that decision. Also, Jordan Allen, cornerback out of the state of Louisiana, 3-star recruit. I believe he holds offers from Mississippi State, Tennessee, and Georgia, just to name a few schools. He likes Miami a lot and its staff. Something Miami's been doing, they've been going out of state and going after under-the-radar recruits that, SEC programs in those respective regions aren't really looking at. They're not takes right away, whereas SEC programs are coming into South Florida and taking the top priority. So a little bit of reverse psychology Miami is doing in attacking states such as Georgia, Alabama, and the state of Louisiana, and looking at 3 to 4-star recruits. So I'm very curious how that pans out. I think Jordan Allen would be a great get for the class. I think Kamari Wilson, obviously, if Miami lands him, watch out. This could be a top 5, top 10 class, but it's very early. Recruiting, is a wild game. And I think what Manny Diaz is trying to do, he's being very picky with the players he's recruiting. He wants the appropriate personality, characteristics in a young man. The last thing he wants, which has been a dire issue at Miami under many coaching staffs, is players decommitting. And under Al Golden, Mark Richt, we used to stack up recruiting classes and be early on highly ranked. And then slowly as we got to signing day, everybody would decommit. So Manny Diaz is doing the opposite, I think. I think he's getting commits, solidifying them, not having players decommit, and then building off of it. Whether when we get to signing day, no one's going to decommit on the final week. It's going to be a done deal, and everyone's going to be a die-hard commit Miami Hurricane. So I think that's what we're seeing.
Mr. Chaboy, I don't know how much you watch the channel. This is the Miami channel over on the main channel. I do these kind of analysis all the time. So believe me, I'm got my head buried in these kind of numbers, making all sorts of conference comparisons and giving metrics too. So just trust me on this. The Coastal Division is not good. Is it the very worst? Probably. I'm not going to stake my claim to that it's the very worst, but it's probably the worst. We gave you the one division that is comparable, but I will tell you this. In 2020, because the non-conference seasons were basically obliterated because of the COVID, the ACC played one non-conference game, but everybody generally played a group of 5 team. They didn't play another Power 5 conference because nobody else in the other Power 5 conferences played out of conference. The ACC went 0 for 6 in bowl play last year. Everybody lost. Did anybody win? I don't think anybody won. Miami lost. North Carolina lost. Clemson lost. Everybody, I think they went 0-6 in bowl play. Okay, the year before, the ACC went 5-19 against the other 4 conferences, and Clemson won 3 of those games. Clemson beat South Carolina, Texas A&M, and they won their playoff game before the LSU loss. So the rest of the conference won 2 games and lost 19 against the other 4 conference. So I don't know what else to tell you. Is that enough for you? Okay. All right. Anything else in here? I think we've got a super chat to catch up with. Falcon ERX, thank you so much for the super sticker. I don't know where you find those super stickers, but Falcon ERX, we appreciate that. Appreciate that. Yeah, see, the Rod Farva knows that the ACC did not win a bowl game. And people jump on me sometimes because they think I obliterate the ACC. I just analyze it. I don't have a stake in the game. I don't care. I'm not rooting for the ACC. I'm not rooting against the ACC. And I was here in 2016 when the ACC won a national championship with Clemson, won an Orange Bowl with Florida State, and went 10-3 in postseason play, and played very well during the non-conference games in the regular season. And I said, here's my thought. The SEC is still the best conference just because my eyeballs tell me and I just know it. But the ACC played the best season against the other 4 conferences. So I'll tell it like it is when it's the other way around. I thought the ACC played a tremendous year in 2016. And ever since then, it's been because Virginia Tech and Florida State and others went downhill. But the conference has a lot of potential. There's a ton of football players around. You know, you got 2 schools in Florida. You've got Clemson's a giant, of course. It's pretty much up to Florida State and Miami to lift this conference back up.
I'll tell you what, Mark. If I'm the ACC, I inquire about UCF. It's a very, very big.
We had that conversation the other day. Yep.
Yeah, I would inquire about adding UCF if you're highly interested in your college football kind of conference per se from the other sports. You know, if you want to make a lot of money, I think UCF, they've done a great job, and I think they have the appropriate resume to join a Power 5 conference, and they're in the state of Florida as well. And geographically it does match up with the ACC, and I think they'd be a great fit in the Coastal.
Falcon ERX is asking if I just picked Miami to go to the playoffs next year. I don't know what I said all in that led you to believe that. I think based on what I've seen of the schedule, which I can't recite off the top of my head, but it's, of course, Alabama. It's Michigan State, which should be a win, but will be a difficult game, possibly. Appalachian State's a very quality Sun Belt game. Then, of course, Florida State out of division, along with you remember who the other?
It goes Virginia, UNC, and NC State, I think.
And so NC State would be the one.
It's after UNC.
I'm just trying to figure out who else they play out of the division. It's always Florida State, and then it's a rotation.
NC State, yeah.
Oh, it comes up NC State again. They played them last year. So NC State's a decent team, but they're nothing great. But they're a decent team. I think that Miami should go 10-2 against this schedule.
Yeah, no, I think so as well. Getting out of that non-conference play is going to be, I think that's going to be key, how they stack up. I'm telling you, that Michigan State game, it's not going to be easy. They better be ready to go. And Mark, let's say Miami beats Alabama. Let's say they lose to Alabama. Their response next week against App State is going to be huge, because if you beat Alabama, you think you're invincible. If you lose to Alabama, well, Miami has a history of losing streaky games or winning consecutively. So, hey, their response as a team is going to be very vital, how they respond to the result of that Alabama game. So I'm curious about that App State game. And then, like I stated, man, I love Mel Tucker as a head coach. I wish Blake James hired him to be the head coach at Miami. Sorry, guys. I view him that highly, and I think he's going to be a star at the college football ranks. And whether that's a good Michigan State team or a bad one, they will give it 110%. All 4 quarters. And that's something Miami should take notes of, because in the past, I feel like they give up on a lot of drives, on some snaps, and that you can see that on the film. I'm not making this up, and that's an issue Miami has within the program, and it needs to fix, and I think Coach Manny Diaz has been working on that issue.
No, that's a great point you make about Michigan State. I watch a lot of Big Ten football, and this is going to be generally the worst Michigan State team you're going to see in about 13 or 14 years because D'Antonio showed up and he instantly made them a winner, and they were great. They were finishing in the top 5, winning Rose Bowls and Cotton Bowls. Then his last few years, they slid off, but they were still good. They were competitive. They won their last 2 bowl games, but they really slid off last year. But I say that on one hand that they're not nearly what they've been, but they will hit. They will show up and they'll hit. They'll play defense and they will play hard. And
Absolutely.
so it'll be a game.
And they beat Northwestern, which was a very good opponent. Very good. I think
they did.
Northwestern gave Ohio State a ride in the.
They sure did.
Oh yeah. So I think, hey, don't sleep on Michigan State. Anthony Russo will be their quarterback under center. First year at Michigan State, coming from Temple.
There. Yeah. Yep. Northwestern then beat Auburn in a bowl game. Northwestern was a good team last year.
Very
Absolutely. Super chat, Mike Williams. Thank you so much, sir, for the super chat contribution. We appreciate that so much coming in from Mike as well. Again, I would like everybody to head on over to Paul's YouTube channel. Are there specific times that you post videos, or just when you're able to get them done, or the live streams, or anything that
just, whenever I go live, whenever, I don't have a specific schedule. Now it's probably going to be past 5 p.m. is when I'm posting primarily when I get off of work. So just look out for that. I may do like pre-recorded videos and then upload it, have it uploaded the night before, and then, put a scheduled premiere time on. So just check me out. Every day I try to put out content, and, I do it because I love the University of Miami football program and I love their athletics as a whole. And it's passion from a fan. I don't do this for subscribers. I do this ultimately for Miami Hurricanes athletics. And that's why I created this channel. It came from 0 subscribers and a MacBook. So the rest is history.
And folks, our deal here. We cover all the college football over on the main channel. We put Paul here on the Miami channel just to help support what we got here. And we appreciate that everybody's pretty well caught up on all that. We've got well over 100 on the line here with us talking Miami football. So great to hear from all of you. So, man, I just try to bring on the best Miami talk that I possibly can. I just supplement it with what I know, which I just watched the games, but I leave it up to these guys to provide the big time expert analysis on the personnel. But I jump in if we're going to talk ACC or the nation. Certainly, I got my thoughts on that. Paul, we appreciate you stopping by as always. You're always welcome, and thanks so much for the insight and the knowledge.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mark, and thank you everyone who tuned in this afternoon. I greatly appreciate it.
We are turning right around, and I'm doing a call-in show on the main channel right here at 6 o'clock Eastern time. And here's my topic today. People have been calling me, Paul, about March Madness. They call in with college basketball questions.
Very cool.
And I tell them, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't watch it. I haven't watched, I'll check out 10 minutes of a game here and there, but I have no idea what's going on. I'm not going to provide you with any insight. So it's been a bit of a joke over there. So I've asked people, the viewers, you guys can dictate today. When people call me about college basketball, should I hang up on them? Should I scream and yell at them and be condescending and stupid, or should I be kind? You guys decide. I will do whatever you tell me to do when we get college basketball calls.
Well, Mark, if you need someone to be informative with those calls, I know the right person, who is the Schwab of college basketball. So just let me know, message me, and I'll give you the details to have him on the show. And he is the best of the best.
Very nice. Very nice. Yes, we are not looking to start a college basketball channel. So I make a lot of jokes about it. And I make references to, players from 20 years ago when they ask me, oh, do you think so-and-so is going to win this game? And I'll say, I'll bring up players from 20 years ago and make a joke of the call. So that's what we do. All right, Paul, appreciate it so much. You have a great rest of your week, and we'll catch you soon.
All right, Mark, take care. Thank you.
All right, everyone, 6 o'clock, which is right now, head on over to the main channel. We'll take your calls on college football.